Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Diane Hayden, publisher of Natural Nutmeg magazine. Welcome to our weekly podcast where I interview our expert writers and contributors on topics ranging from natural medicine, nutrition, fitness, green living, spirituality, and ways to live a healthier, more holistic lifestyle. I am excited to have with me today Eilis Philpott. She's the owner of Soul Healing Journey and the Academy for Soul Healing. She's been a healing practitioner and teacher for over 20 years, and she has many exciting events and trainings and courses going on. We're going to be learning today about the 13th Octave LaHoChi. Did I get that right?
You got it. I was mouthing with you to make sure you got it right. I know it's a very long name.
It's actually not. It's just that, well, I wrote it the way it sounds, which probably is not the way it's spelled, but cool. So tell us about it.
Sure. It's a long name because it started off originally as two separate things, two separate modalities. So the 13th octave is a place of divine union with source. So it's off the grid of physicality, and it's where we go to join source without having to die and leave our bodies. So that was a process that came in, I think, around the 90s, early 90s. And so many of the workshops that I was doing with Linda Dillon, who channeled that information, was around the 13th octave and just the 13th octave. LaHoChi was a separate modality that was on the planet. It had been, well, it was originally in the Pleiadian, had introduced it in Atlantis, and then it was lost with the fall of Atlantis, if you believe all that. And was channeled to a person named Satchmar, who was a student of Sai Baba. And he channeled numerous stuff in the 70s. I'm really bad on dates, so whenever I'm quoting dates, I have to have my manual in front of me, but it's not that long ago.
Okay, we won't hold you to it.
Yeah, thank you. So then in late 1990s, early 2000s, those two energies, Linda was guided to join the two energies. So the LaHoChi was expanded. The energy was intensified. We were doing this process from the place of the 13th octave. There were many ascended masters, Mother Mary, archangels, added lots of gifts. Saint Germain added the violet flame. So it was already powerful before, and now it was even more intensified. It's a hands-on healing technique, which when I teach a class, I teach how to do the hand positions, and I am supporting the clients or students, or whatever we want to call them, in receiving these new energies. So it's not quite an initiation like you have in Reiki, but right. It's downloads of energy so that your body is getting used to this new energy that it hasn't held before. And then learning the hand positions so that you can then use it either as a self-healing tool, you can use it as a practitioner on its own or add it to other modalities, or you can use, some people use it like if they're working on the planet, on the ley lines of the planet, or they're working on the waters of the planet. So you can use it in different ways. The first time I taught it was 2008.
Oh, wow.
So it was a long time ago.
Yep.
Yeah. And then I had a gap for a while, and then 2016, it's like I was directed, guided to start teaching it again. So that's when it really took off big time. And it was very interesting to see from 2008 to 2016 how the energy had shifted, not just a little bit, but majorly. Mm-hmm. And all the downloads happened a lot faster, and people were receiving the energy a lot easier and quicker, and processing through whatever they needed to process through in order to be able to hold this energy. So that was very interesting, those observations.
Does it have anything to do with music? Because I'm thinking like
Interesting.
octave, right?
Yes.
You're like,
Yeah. There is in the 13th octave notes section of the manual, comparing it to an octave. So in general, there's 12 dimensions, 12 planes, 12 dimensions, planes, and something else. And this in the grid of humanity. And the octaves on the piano are, it's like C to C, C to C. So every time you move through a dimension and a plane, and the other one that I can't remember this second, you're moving through these different octaves. So it's like everything is squared. So the 13th octave is the first octave squared, that's squared, that's squared, up to 13. So on the planet Earth, we only go up to the 12th dimension. So that's why they say it's off the grid of humanity. It was a gift, a portal that was opened to allow humanity to move through the ascension process that we're moving through now. Originally, the portal was only going to be open for a short period of time. And then I think probably to allow like 144,000 souls, you know, that magic number, to go through the portal. And at some stage, the guides, I think it was Saint Germain or Archangel Gabriel, she does a lot of talking for that group, decided that the portal would remain open because humanity had taken such great steps and done such great work that they were going to leave the portal open for us. So it's been open ever since.
Wow. So I have to ask you a question that people, when I'm talking about like ascension and things like that, and people who I'll say don't have a lot of experience with the word or even the process or whatever, I've literally had people ask me, so what happens? Like, if someone is ascending, are they going into a different dimension and you could be looking at them right now and then they disappear? So I want to hear, like, I want you to explain it from your understanding.
Yes, my definition of ascension is that we are living in 7th dimension consciousness, which is Christ consciousness, in this reality on the earth plane in the 3rd dimension, while being in the 13th octave connected with source. So to me, that's ascension. So that's kind of still a metaphysical definition. My more human definition is that an ascended person truly recognizes that they are a divine being, that they don't have to look outside of themselves. They don't have to go and look for gurus or priests or other people to acknowledge and to recognize their divinity. Each one of us is our own individual unit of divinity. And that's what my understanding of ascension is on a human level, is understanding who we truly are.
Right. So we're not actually going to another place.
No, not unless we choose to.
That could be interpreted in a lot of different ways.
That could be. Maybe I better explain that. We can choose to go to different dimensions through meditation. Right. We are often, I believe, living in different dimensions currently, and we just don't have awareness of it. So I'm not talking about any other hokey pokey stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But yes, many interpretations. It's like all of this stuff. There's so many interpretations and so many.
Right. So when you say that a portal is open or closed or whatnot, it's the same thing. It's not exactly, it's not saying that 144,000 people would physically pass through an entryway and then, you know, you'd never see that person again because they ascended. It's that they would have the ability to recognize themselves as a divine being. Okay. And be able to communicate back and forth and receive those energies and things like that. And I guess the decision was in the past that there would only be a limited number of people who would have access to this. Now, that is not the case anymore. It's basically anyone who.
Yeah. And the other piece of it is that when I went to the 13th octave the first time, it's like I didn't feel a lot of bells and whistles and whatever, which is what I was imagining I would feel, and was kind of, oh, that one, that kind of, that's kind of my story anyway. Right. But when I came back, we did a meditation for a few hours. When I came back, I cried and I was like, oh my God, I wanted to stay there. And it was like that feeling of being home.
Yep.
And so what I chose was, I was going to live in the 13th octave. So every day I would do my little, it's like seconds long thing to get to the 13th octave without having to do the full meditation, and literally live in the 13th octave. So it's like living in the 13th, in the seventh dimension of Christ consciousness, while being firmly anchored on the planet. And that's the bit that was missed before, was we had a lot of people who I noticed in the past when I started doing this work, if they did spiritual work, it was like they were often perceived to be very in the clouds, airy-fairy, their feet not planted on the ground. But now being spiritual is about being planted firmly in the earth reality and in this existence while being connected.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about your class. We kind of got sidetracked a little bit.
Yeah.
So you explained the basis, like the foundation of it. And so how long does it go for? How long do you work with people for?
I'm doing a weekend in July, and it will be a Friday evening, about 7 to 10-ish, and then Saturday, Sunday, 10-ish to 6-ish. Depending on how many people are there and how much talking people do, because that varies the length of a workshop, but they're kind of the general hours. And it's a very basic introduction. So at the end of it, you will be able to do self-healing. You will have been initiated into the 13th octave. You will have been initiated into St. Germain's healing school, which have a lot of additional stuff with it now. You do self-healing, you will practice on other people doing healing. So at the end of the weekend, you can, if you choose to, add it as a practice. If people want to do more, then I do a 6-month module of 13th octave and 13th octave LaHoChi, which literally just finished in June, which will be coming around at a later stage. But the weekend workshops that I do are often a very basic, not quite an introduction, because you can be registered or certified as a practitioner. Right. But if you want to learn more, you do need to go on and do the 6-month modules in whatever the modality is. So that will be the general breakdown of that weekend in July.
Okay. And it's July, what were the dates?
23rd, which is the Friday evening, 24th, 25th.
Okay. And then if people want to do more, the longer one, do you have a date when that's going to start?
The next one is going to be in, which I've already started planning, July of 2022.
Oh, so a year from now. Okay.
Yeah, because literally the program I'm doing now, I just finished the 13th Octave LaHoChi. I'm starting the Rebirthing 6 months, which starts in just over a week. And then when that's finished, I'm doing the Akashic Field healing module, which is another 4 months. So I'm kind of running through all the modules first and then start again next July, of which I already have people signed up for. So it's one of those things, if you want to do it, get your name down as soon as you can.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like with any healing, I liken any healing modality to, say, like exercise or even meditation. I mean, it's something, to me, it's like a lifestyle practice, you know.
Absolutely.
Sure, you can get something out of doing it for a weekend, but if it's not something that you integrate into your daily life, you know, are you really going to benefit from?
Yeah. Yeah. And what I recommend after this weekend is that you do 30 days of self-healing practice. And you can literally do that lying down in bed before you go to sleep. And the idea behind that is to get your body used to this new energy, because it's intense energy. It's very powerful. And that reminded me of something else. And the other piece is that doing the practice on other people is helping with the muscle memory, so that you don't have to think about it. When you've practiced on enough people, you don't have to keep on checking with the manual. You don't have to keep going back and saying, what position is next? It's like your hands will just go more automatically. And I've forgotten the other piece already that I was going to think of. Oh, yes, I remember. 13th Octave LaHoChi is a very broad, expansive energy. So when I was doing a lot of group LaHoChi, 13th Octave LaHoChi sessions, different groups had different energies coming in. So there was one time I did a group where there was a lot of ancestor and ancestral cleaning energy coming in. There was another group where we were working on the planet. It's like we were all kind of circling the planet and healing the planet. There was another time we did the work and a lot of the indigenous energies were coming in stronger than they had been already because they're already in it. And one of the locations that I did one of the classes in, two of the classes, was very Native American. And they were like really happy, the Native American beings, to have this energy on the land and then expand it. So because there is so much energy, it's like you get your downloads, but you can't get absolutely everything in one go. So each person receives the piece that they need and that they're ready for. And then if they choose to carry on at a later stage, then they can add to that. So people will often review this class because they're getting the energy at a deeper level and they're receiving new information that they hadn't received before.
And do you need any, are there any like prerequisites?
No.
Okay.
No.
So let's say someone's considering, you know, becoming a Reiki practitioner, or even just going to, have Reiki healings. Why would they do 13th octave versus Reiki, let's say?
This is a controversial topic.
Oh, oops, I didn't even know that.
No, it's not controversial in that sense. It's just that it has been stated that this is a lot more powerful than Reiki.
Okay, I get where the controversy comes in.
Okay. But there's the involvement of the masters and the guides, which is not the case in Reiki, which is just the connection to, well, pure consciousness.
Oh, right. Yep.
Consciousness. And some of the gifts that have been added is like Mother Mary has added the blue diamond of nurturing, Saint Germain, the violet flame. And then the last 2 years, I'd say Isis has been stepping up big time with my version of the 13th Octave LaHoChi, and has introduced additional downloads in the ceremony of receiving the energies of the Saint Germain Healing School. So it's constantly evolving because I'm evolving and I'm the channel for the energy. It's constantly evolving because the people who do it are evolving. So it's like we're feeding that divine expansion. So we're feeding the divine expansion is feeding us. So it's that back and forth relationship. I'm sure Reiki does the same thing. And I have recently received Holy Fire Reiki, which feels more in alignment with 13th Octave LaHoChi than Usui Reiki did. So I think there is an evolution in Reiki energy as well. So it's whichever one feels more comfortable and what you're drawn to. And one of the channeled messages in the Council of this Council of Love that it's channeled from, it states that the imprint for this energy was placed in the DNA. So it's a workshop that you'll read the description and most people will say, myself included, I have no idea what this is all about. I just know I have to do it. So most people who do it don't know why, they just know they have to do it. And that's that imprint in the DNA that's being activated by reading the information.
That makes sense. Yeah, I wasn't asking the question to compare, you know, like to
Yeah,
judge
no,
or compare. I was just thinking from the perspective of, you know, like if I'm listening to this podcast and I'm considering, you know, doing one versus
yeah,
the other, like how would I make a decision? And I'm glad that you said kind of the resonating, because
yeah,
that's how I make my choices when I
me too.
decide, you know, there's a million different healing modalities and spiritual classes and, you
Yeah,
know, all different kinds of metaphysical things that you can do. How do you decide?
right,
Well, for me, it's always been like, okay, what is resonating with me? What do I feel connected to? Not necessarily do I understand it, like you were saying,
yeah,
like I don't really, I don't understand what all this stuff is, but you kind of, you feel that there's a connection to that energy.
right. And there's a connection with the teacher as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's that that's really, really important. It's like two people can teach the same class, and one of them it's like it'll be awesome, and the other one's like, I don't get this.
Right.
And it's not that one is wrong or one is better, it's just it's a different energy matchup.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I believe.
Yep. Yep. No, that makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. So what else we're going to put, like we'll have links and things like that when people are accessing this to get to your website, and I'm assuming they can go to your Academy for Soul Healing website. Okay.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to let people also know what other things you have coming up. I know you mentioned the Akashic Field Healing and that kind of thing. So what other trainings are you going to be having coming up in the next month or two, or this fall even?
I have not put a lot on the calendar because I have this year of healing. And in 2019, when I was doing, it was just a year long at that time. And I was doing another workshop every month as well as that. And COVID helped me in that I needed a break and I needed to rest.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So I have chosen to have less one-off weekends while I'm doing the enhanced year of healing, it's called now. So literally July 10th, I think it's the Saturday, starts module 2 of the enhanced year of healing. I think I have like 1 spot or 2 spots left in that somebody could do if they really wanted to. Mm-hmm. And then January, the Akashic Field Healing. I have for the moment put on the schedule in September that I may do a rebirthing weekend. And I am considering also doing some holy fire Reiki training, but that's not clear. I kind of have to wait for clarity and to be told what I'm doing. There is something else that I thought recently I was going to be teaching. No, it's gone. Yeah, it's gone.
Tell me about the rebirthing class.
Rebirthing. Rebirthing is a breathing technique. Very powerful, very cool. After I trained in Reiki, which everybody starts off with Reiki, and I'm generalizing there, I did rebirthing training. It's a breathing technique which originally centered around birth trauma. Around the time that I trained, which was 96, so I did a 9-month training and then an advanced training after that. It had kind of expanded into conception, preconception, birth, in utero, and that first year of life. So all the issues that are going on in someone's life in some way is reflected back in that early birth experience. There is an association called APA, which is the Association for Pre- and Perinatal Psychology and Health, which are scientifically proving that birth psychology is very relevant in our society, and it's starting to grow. It's getting more recognition. When I started practicing, I noticed that the breathing technique removed trauma from not just birth, but whatever trauma was coming up for the client that particular day. So the breathing technique is accessing all 4 energy bodies. It's accessing the physical trauma, emotional trauma, mental trauma, and it's connecting you a lot more because of the ki, the prana, the energy, to spiritual source. So yeah, it's a powerful breathing technique which sometimes connects you to how your birth was, and sometimes connects you and helps you release trauma from the body. And the ultimate goal is to get to be living in a state of bliss. And so those blissful rebirths are awesome. It's like better than anything.
Yeah.
So that's the goal.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. I haven't done much reading or research, but I have, definitely seen papers and articles written on the connection between, say, like, let's say your mother had a car accident or whatever when she was 4 months pregnant with you or something like that, or even the way that you were born, like, say, like a cesarean section, right? Yeah. Versus, or maybe a traumatic birth even, right? Or I guess all birth is traumatic, actually.
I was just going to say that. If you think about it, it's like just the fact of coming out this teeny weeny tiny little tube into the atmosphere, and it's cold, and then they start rubbing you with a towel, and that's no complications.
Right.
So yeah, patterns are set up from that experience. So an example would be if you're a forceps baby. So it's somehow you needed support to be pulled out. Mm-hmm. So in life, you'll often set up situations where you need to be forced to do something to be supported, which in one hand doesn't sound too bad, but then the result is that you can get really angry about that. It's like, no, I wanted to do it my way, and blah. So there are kind of all these different scenarios and patterns that are set up because of a result, which get triggered during stress. Mm-hmm. So negative and positive stress. So it's like when you're in, say you're getting married, or it's like moving house is one of the most stressful things you'll do. It triggers what's called birth script. So it's those patterns that were set up around your birth and how you survived your birth. So it's like your subconscious is saying, okay, I lived through that experience, which was my first life or death experience. This is how I did it. So this is what I need to recreate to survive any other stressful situation. Yep. It's fascinating. I love it.
It is really fascinating. And it's funny that this is coming up because I was, so the last week or so has been more stressful than normal in terms of putting a magazine to bed, to print, so to speak. Yeah. Like you name it, like whatever could go wrong went wrong. For some random reason, we lost internet on Monday. It was gone. I had to go to a coffee shop and be doing proofing and stuff. Like my designer lost an ad. I mean, we found it again, but it was like, he couldn't remember what he named it.
As it wasn't my ad.
It wasn't yours. This was the Florida magazine. We found it. No, everyone can calm down. Like the covers weren't coming out right. It was just like one thing after another. Yeah. And on top of it, there were other things going on. And I was like getting triggered by stuff that like normally I would be like, my friend would say something offhand to me and I was just like, oh my God, that like, why would she say that? Or why would she do that? And I'm just, I'm usually the type of person that's pretty like upbeat and, kind of just lets things slide off and whatever. For whatever reason, like this last week, I've been out of my mind, like just everything is ticking me off. Yeah. And so I'm writing these daily emails and I'm like, well, I'm going to write about what's happening. And so it reminded me of a passage out of one of Eckhart Tolle's books, The Power of Now, about how like when you get into like this negative thought spiral, your pain body wants to keep you there. And you have to realize that it's something, something about this string of events triggered you from something in the past. Yeah. And you need to figure out like, what was it? Yeah. And it was so funny because he even wrote like, it could be something as simple as something your friend says to you that normally you wouldn't, even, it wouldn't even bother you. And for whatever reason, this week you're like,
yeah, it's like when I was kind of doing early healing work myself, it's like if I'm reacting bigger to a situation than the situation requires, I know I've been triggered.
Yep.
That was always my clue. Like if I wanted to kill someone and mash their head into the ground, that meant somehow old anger had been triggered.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly it. It's so funny. Yeah. So that's interesting. So that's So, but I didn't think of relating it back to a birth pattern.
Yeah.
I mean, that far back.
Right.
So.
And it's like people do therapy about childhood and they don't go back further.
Mm-hmm.
Or even in utero. It's like I've started looking a lot in utero in the classes and doing in utero meditation. It's like, how was your experience in utero? You were there 9 months developing inside your mom. What was her life like? Right. What was she doing? What was she saying? How was she interacting? Was she interacting with the father? Was she an accident? Was she did both parents consciously choose to have this baby and start connecting with the soul before conception? So there's so many areas you can go with this topic.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So interesting. But either way, I mean, my understanding is that the soul picks all those choices anyway. So even if it was I'll label it negative situation, right? Like the soul picked that to experience. Like, let's say it wasn't, the parents didn't choose to have the child. It was a surprise or whatever.
Yeah.
So you've chosen to go into that situation so you can learn and work through that.
Right.
And of course it's going to trigger you because you chose to learn and work through it.
Yeah. Right? And if you believe in past lives, which a lot of people do, some people have past life memories while they're in the birthing process. And so for whatever reason, it's easier for them to relate to the past life experience than in this lifetime. But it's still relevant because they're healing the energy.
Right.
Whether it's from past life, because people would say to me, is that actually true? Did that really happen? It's like they're recounting this scene that they're seeing in their mind's eye. And I would always say, it doesn't matter if it's true or not, as long as you're doing the healing, as long as the reason why you're seeing this is to heal it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. I think those are questions that a lot of people have, I mean, how do I know like what vision I see in my meditation is real or whatever, I mean, I bet people would even ask or probably have asked you, like, how do you know you're connecting to Isis, or how do you know which masters or guides you're connecting to?
Yeah. And I've asked that question when I was starting off, even how do I know if this is my higher self or my ego self that's talking to me and wants to keep me in this loop of whatever? And how I explain that is that I had to learn my way of getting information. So I don't get information the way other people are perceived to often get information. So my way of receiving information is a lot more subtle, but I had to figure it out and start trusting it. And you only start trusting it when you experience, and then you see, oh, that was true, or that was right. So it happens over time, particularly when it's more subtle.
Right. Yeah. And also I think you have to be open to it. Like, so I was in this, funk or whatever I'll call it. And I went out for a walk Sunday night, and it was a beautiful sunset. And I was walking around this paved path around our complex. And I actually was walking the other direction, like I was walking east. And so I actually stopped and turned around to look at the sunset because it was the colors were so beautiful Sunday night. And as I stopped and turned around and looked up, a great blue heron flew over my head. And that's my spirit animal.
Yeah.
Like my most connected spirit animal. And I'm like, okay, like if I hadn't turned around, like if I hadn't stopped to like smell the roses, right? Yeah. Like I could have just been like, I'm gonna keep on walking, whatever. I'm like, no, I'm gonna turn around. The sunset's really beautiful. I'm gonna look at the sky.
Yeah.
I would have missed it completely. Yeah. Right? Like it would have flown over to my back and I wouldn't have even seen that.
Or he would have had to go up there to say, she didn't see me. Now
that's right.
Direction.
He probably would have turned around. He probably would have turned around for sure. So I'm like, okay, like that's my, everything's going to be okay message, like it's, you can take a breath.
It must be, I think I was in a funk last weekend as well.
So I don't know what it is. Maybe it's something going around.
Yeah. Yeah, I was in a funk. I didn't want anything to do with anyone, or it's like, no, just leave me alone.
Yep. So that was Sunday. And then a couple more things happened. And on Tuesday, I wasn't really any better. And I'm driving home from the gym, and the license plate on the car in front of me has the letters GAG. And that is what I used to call my grandmother, because I called her Gaggy instead of grandma.
Yeah.
Like mommy, daddy, I don't know, Gaggy makes sense to me. And then as I got older, we just called her Gag for short, which is a terrible nickname. But she thought she didn't bother her or whatever. And I'm like,
right.
What are the chances that I would see a car with the license plate with her name on it in front of me? I'm like, come on. All right. I'm listening. Like,
I got it.
Yep.
I hear what you're saying.
Yep. So yeah, like it's subtle stuff that maybe, you know, if you weren't paying attention to, you would completely miss. But to me, it's like, all right, like they're watching out for you. And in these two instances, it was, you know, like a relative that's passed and a spirit, you know, animal or whatever. But still, it's like it's
a reminder.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's not a coincidence. Like those two things happening back to back like that, there's not a coincidence.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it when those kind of things happen. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, and the other one is that if it's like for manifesting, it's like if we want to manifest money, and I know that a lot of the literature says, put down a figure, a number, this is how much I want to manifest. And I always remember somebody saying to me at one class I did that you want $100 and you're waiting for this $100 and you're waiting and you're at the train station and you're waiting, you've been told that somebody on the train is going to give you this $100 and you're waiting and waiting and you don't see anyone. In the meantime, a train has come on the other track and dropped off $1,000. So so it's like limiting the ability to receive by being very particular about what it is that you want to receive.
Right. Because the universe will always bring us more, right? Like that's what it wants to do, right? So so don't be so fixated on like I need this exact scenario.
Because it will come.
Right. Exactly. Awesome. So exciting stuff as always. I feel like our podcast could go for like 2 hours.
I know. We could just start chatting. And we were already chatting before we even started recording.
I know. So I want to make sure that people know where they can go to get more information about your upcoming class and even future classes. So your website, like any contact information you want to give people.
Yes. So this website, I have 2 websites. One is Soul Healing Journey, SOUL Healing Journey, and that has all the modalities that I do in sessions, and the other one is the Academy for Soul Healing. I nearly said the Academy. It's Academy for Soul Healing, and that's where I list all the classes that I'm having. So I try to make sure that one of the top tabs has the next class that I'm doing. So it should be on the top tab rather than one of the drop-down menus. So it's on there. You can reach me by contacting me by email, Eilis, EILIS @soulhealingjourney.com. I am a big Facebook person, so on Facebook I am Eilis McNulty Philpott, and I hope you can find that without me having to spell every single bit of it out. So that's how, and I do a lot on Messenger. So you can reach me that way, and text, and my phone is 203-767-5954. And I'm looking forward to everybody contacting me.
Awesome. Yeah, well, this has been great. Thank you again for your time and all the great information, and hope people will be reaching out to you. And thanks everybody for listening to this podcast. It's available on naturalnutmeg.com, and it'll be e-blasted out to all of our readers as well. So thank you, Eilis. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. And it was an honor to be chatting with you again.
Awesome. Me too. Hope everybody has a great day.